The stars looked peaceful through the viewport of the quiet dawn. Captain Ji-hoon stood with his hands behind his back, watching the empty space ahead. His ship had been mapping this sector for 3 weeks without incident. That was about to change. "Captain, we have incoming vessels," said Park Soo-min from her station. She was the chief scientist on board, responsible for studying alien life if they ever found any. Today, it seemed they would. 7 ships. No, wait, 15. They're big, sir. Ji-hoon nodded slowly. He had been expecting this. Humanity had been careful, staying away from the busy parts of the galaxy for 30 years. But eventually someone was going to notice them. What do they look like? Soo-min worked her controls, bringing up images on the main screen. The ships were massive, covered in dark armor plating and bristling with weapons. They looked like they were designed for one purpose only: war. "I'm picking up biological signatures. They're called the Vrakans, according to the database. The most powerful military species in the galaxy." "Of course they are," Ji-hoon said with a slight smile. He pressed a button on his chair. "Daeho, please come to the bridge." Commander Kung Daeho arrived within seconds. He was the military officer assigned to the Quiet Dawn, though the ship was technically a civilian exploration vessel. When he saw the Vrakan fleet on the screen, his jaw tightened. "Sir, we need to go to battle stations." "Oh?" Ji-hoon said simply. "But Captain, we follow Protocol 7, Commander. Always Protocol 7 during first contact." Daeho looked like he wanted to argue, but he stayed quiet. Protocol 7 was clear. Never reveal humanity's true capabilities during initial contact with alien species. Hide what you can do. Appear weaker than you are. Learn everything about them while they learn nothing real about you. The communication system crackled to life. A deep, harsh voice filled the bridge. "Human vessel. This is Supreme Commander Vextral of the Vrakan Empire. You have entered Galactic Council space without permission. Power down your weapons and prepare to be escorted to the Council. Refuse, and you will be destroyed." Ji-hoon glanced at Soo-min. She was already analyzing the transmission, pulling data from it. She gave him a small nod. They were learning about Vrakan communication technology, language patterns, and threat assessment protocols just from that one message. "This is Captain Lee Ji-hoon of the exploration vessel Quiet Dawn," he replied calmly. "We mean no harm. We accept your terms and will accompany you to the Council." There was silence on the other end. Clearly, the Vrakans had expected resistance, or at least some negotiation. Daeho was shaking his head slowly. He knew what the Quiet Dawn could really do. The ship looked old and simple, but that was entirely by design. Hidden beneath the plain exterior were weapon systems that could disable the entire Vrakan fleet in less than a minute. The shields could withstand firepower that would vaporize a planet. The engines could jump to faster than light speed in directions that shouldn't be physically possible. But the Vrakans would never know that. "You will follow our ships," Vextral finally said. "Any deviation from the prescribed course will be considered an act of war." "Understood," Ji-hoon replied. He closed the channel and turned to his crew. "Soo-min, I want a full analysis of their ships, weapons, and biology. Everything you can scan without them noticing." "Already on it, Captain," she said, her fingers dancing across her console. "Their ships are impressive by galactic standards. Heavy armor, plasma weapons, basic energy shields. Their biology is interesting. They're reptilian, very strong, fast reflexes. But, sir," she paused, looking up at him with concern in her eyes. "What is it?" "They're operating at what they consider peak physical performance. Their warriors are enhanced with the best technology they have." "And, Ji-hoon asked, though he suspected he knew what she was going to say. Soo-min bit her lip. "Captain, their peak performance is roughly equivalent to a human teenager, an average one. Not even an athletic one." Daeho laughed, but there was no humor in it. "So the galaxy's strongest military species would lose a fistfight to a high school student from Earth." "It's not funny," Commander Ji-hoon said quietly. "It means we need to be even more careful. If they ever find out what we really are, it could cause panic. Fear, war, why not just tell them the truth?" asked Choi Hijin, who had just entered the bridge. She was the diplomatic officer, assigned to handle first contact situations. We're not their enemies. Because fear makes people do stupid things, Ji-hoon replied. The Vrakans have been the strongest species in the galaxy for 10,000 years. Imagine learning that a new species showed up who could crush you without effort. Would you trust them? Or would you try to destroy them before they destroyed you? Haijin nodded slowly. She understood. Humanity's greatest weapon right now wasn't their technology or their physical abilities. It was the fact that nobody knew about either one. The journey to the council station took 3 days. During that time, the crew of the Quiet Dawn learned everything about the Vrakans. Their ships, their weapons, their culture, their history, their psychology. The Vrakans, meanwhile, scanned the Quiet Dawn and saw exactly what humanity wanted them to see. A primitive vessel with basic technology. Probably no match for even a minor galactic species. Sumin spent hours in her lab studying the data. She learned that the galaxy was home to 47 different intelligent species. The Vrakans were the military leaders, but there were others who specialized in trade, science, or diplomacy. None of them, as far as she could tell, were anywhere close to human capabilities. The strongest species could lift about 300 kilograms. An average human could lift that with one hand while not even trying very hard. The fastest species could run at 40 kilometers per hour for short bursts. Human children routinely went faster on their bicycles. The smartest species had reaction times of about 200 milliseconds. Human fighter pilots operated at 20 milliseconds, and that was without any technological enhancement. We're going to have to be very, very careful, Sumin told the captain during a private meeting. If we make even one mistake, if someone sees a human do something casual that would be impossible for them, everything could fall apart. Then we don't make mistakes, Ji-hoon said. We train for this. Every member of this crew knows Protocol 7. We appear weak, we appear primitive, and we learn everything we can.
Oh.
Why are we even doing this? Sumin asked. We could just stay away from the galaxy. Keep to ourselves. Ji-hoon looked out at the stars again. Because they're out here. We're out here. Eventually, we'll meet. Better to meet on terms we control, with a relationship we build carefully, than to have some accident force a confrontation we're not ready for. On the 3rd day, they arrived at Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council station. It was enormous, a structure the size of a small moon housing millions of beings from dozens of species. The Quiet Dawn docked in a bay designed for small civilian craft. Through the windows, Ji-hoon could see Vrakan guards watching them, weapons ready.
I'll remember,
He told his crew over the intercom. You are all average humans, not soldiers, not athletes, just ordinary people. If you need to lift something, struggle with it. If you need to move quickly, be slow. If something surprises you, act startled. We are not impressive. We are not threatening. We are just another species trying to find our place in the galaxy. Understood, Captain, came the responses. Ji-hoon stood and straightened his uniform. It was time to meet the galaxy. Time to begin the greatest performance humanity had ever given. Time to show them exactly what they expected to see, and nothing more. He smiled to himself as he headed for the airlock. The Vrakans thought they were escorting a weak, primitive species to face judgment. They had no idea they were bringing a sleeping tiger into their home, and the tiger was going to keep pretending to be a house cat for as long as necessary. The council chambers were designed to intimidate. Ambassador Choi Hijin understood that the moment she walked through the massive doors, the ceiling stretched up so high, it disappeared into shadows. Representatives from 47 different species sat in elevated seats looking down at the floor where she stood. The Vrakans occupied the highest seats, their reptilian faces showing no emotion. The human will state her purpose, announced a tall being with blue skin and 4 arms. According to her briefing, this was a Quellan, one of the diplomatic species. Haijin bowed slightly. Thank you for receiving us. Humanity wishes to join the Galactic Council. We come in peace, seeking knowledge and friendship. A ripple of sounds moved through the chamber. Some species were clicking, others were humming, and the Vrakans were making a low rumbling sound that her translator interpreted as laughter. Supreme, Commander Thextrel stood. He was massive, nearly 3 meters tall, covered in scales that looked like natural armor. Every species that wishes to join the council must prove themselves worthy. You will face the trial of worthiness. 3 tests: combat, strength, and technology. Succeed, and you may join us. Fail, and you will return to your small corner of space and never return.
Jean nodded.
She had expected this. We accept the trials. However, I request that we send average citizens for these tests, not our best warriors or scientists. The chamber erupted in noise. The Vrakans were laughing openly now. The Exurl's eyes narrowed. You wish to send your weakest? Are you trying to fail? No, Hyjin said calmly. We wish to show you what ordinary humans can do. If you judge us by our people, not by our exceptions. She was lying, of course. Every human was exceptional by galactic standards. But the Council didn't need to know that. Sending their average humans was actually the best way to hide how capable humanity really was. Very well, Thetsrel said. He sounded amused. If you wish to embarrass yourself, that is your choice. The first trial was scheduled for the next day. Hyjin returned to the quiet dawn and met with her team. Lieutenant Nam Yunji was stretching in the cargo bay, preparing for the combat trial. She was 24 years old, had never seen real combat, and had the lowest physical scores in the entire human military. That made her perfect. Remember Hyjin told her? Make it look difficult. Breathe hard, sweat, act tired. Yunji nodded. How long should I let it go? 10 minutes, said Kim Minho, who had been studying Vrakan culture. No species has ever survived more than 5 minutes against their champion. If you last 10, that will be impressive but not suspicious. What if he actually hurts me? Yunji asked. Minho smiled. Then you'll heal in a few hours, and we'll all feel bad about it. But he probably can't. Just remember to act like he can. The next morning, they gathered in a large arena. Thousands of aliens filled the seats, eager to watch the human fail. The Vrakan champion entered from one side. He was even larger than the Exurel, covered in scars that told of countless victories. The crowd roared. Yunji entered from the other side. She looked tiny in comparison, barely reaching the champion's chest. She wore simple combat clothes and carried no weapons. Neither did the champion. This was to be a pure test of physical ability. The fight began. The champion charged immediately, trying to end it quickly. Yunji dodged, but she made sure to dodge slowly, barely getting out of the way. She could have moved 10 times faster, but that would have looked wrong. The champion swung massive fists at her. She blocked, absorbing the impact and sliding backward. It actually didn't hurt at all, but she grunted as if it did. For 10 minutes, they fought. Yunji calculated every move. She had to let him hit her sometimes, but not too hard. She had to land hits on him, but not too many. She had to look skilled, but desperate, talented, but outmatched. It was like a dance, where she knew every step, but had to pretend she was making it up as she went. Finally, time was called. Both fighters stepped back. Yunji was breathing hard, sweat running down her face. She had worked harder at acting tired than she had at the actual fight. The champion looked surprised. He had never fought someone who lasted that long. A draw, announced the referee. The crowd was silent, shocked. Hyjin smiled to herself. Perfect. The second trial was strength. Dr. Yoon-Jisu volunteered for this one. She was a scientist, not an athlete. She had never done military training. She spent most of her time in libraries and laboratories. That made her ideal. They brought out a massive stone block. 4 of our strongest warriors are required to lift this, Dexrel explained. If your representative can lift it, even for a moment, you pass. 4 Vrakan warriors demonstrated, grunting and straining as they raised the block together. They set it down, breathing heavily from the effort. Jisoo walked up to the block. She put her hands under it, crouched down, and lifted. The block rose into the air. She held it with one hand while she pulled out her tablet with the other, making notes about the stone's composition. Then she noticed the absolute silence in the arena. Oh, she said quietly. She remembered her instructions. She set the block down, grabbed it with both hands, lifted it again, and this time she grunted loudly. She added a bit of shaking to her arms, as if the weight was almost too much. She held it for exactly the required 10 seconds, then dropped it with a loud gasp. That was heavy, she said, putting her hands on her knees and breathing hard. The crowd erupted, but not in celebration. There was confusion, concern. Minho, watching from the human section, saw Vraken officials talking urgently to each other. They were beginning to suspect something. The third trial was technology. The humans were asked to demonstrate their most advanced device. Hyjin had prepared carefully for this. They brought out a medical scanner, one that was actually 60 years old by Earth standards. It could diagnose diseases and injuries using quantum sensing technology. The Council's technology experts examined it. To them, it was impressive, but not revolutionary. They had similar devices, though perhaps not quite as refined. What they didn't see was the real medical technology humans possessed. Nano-repair systems that could rebuild a body at the molecular level. Neural interfaces that could connect consciousness directly to computers. Genetic optimization that had eliminated almost every disease. Acceptable, the Quellan judge announced. The humans have passed all 3 trials. We grant them provisional membership in the Galactic Council. There was polite applause, but Hyjin noticed the Vrakans weren't joining in. Dexrael was staring at her with his dark eyes, and she could see the calculation happening behind them. He was smart. He knew something was wrong. After the ceremony, she met with her team back on the ship. They're suspicious, Minho said. The Vrakans, at least. Maybe some of the others, too. Good, Hyjin replied. Good. Let them be suspicious. As long as they can't prove anything, suspicion is just fear. And fear will make them cautious. Cautious species don't start wars. Yunji was looking at her hands. I could have ended that fight in 3 seconds. Maybe less. It felt wrong to hold back that much. It's because you're human, Hyjin said gently. We're not built to hold back. Every instinct we have tells us to compete, to win, to dominate. But that's exactly why we have to control those instincts. The galaxy isn't ready for what we are. Maybe it never will be. So we just keep lying? Jisoo asked. We keep surviving, Hyjin corrected. We keep learning. We keep building relationships. And if someday there's a crisis, if the galaxy needs us to be more than what we appear to be, then maybe we'll show them. But on our terms, when we're ready. When they're ready? The next day, humanity was formally admitted to the Galactic Council. They were ranked as a mid-tier species, roughly equivalent to 30 other races. Not weak, but not particularly strong. Unremarkable, really? Hyjin accepted the ranking with appropriate gratitude and humility. Inside, she was calculating. They now had legal access to galactic trade routes, scientific databases, and intelligence networks. They could send ships anywhere in council space. They could establish relationships with dozens of species. And all of it while appearing to be just another average member of the galactic community, as their ship prepared to leave Nexus Prime.
Oh.
She received a private message. It was from the X-Roll. Just 3 words. I know something.
Oh.
She deleted the message and smiled. Let him know something. As long as he didn't know everything, humanity was safe. And if he ever did learn everything, well, she hoped it would be because humanity chose to tell him. Not because he discovered it on his own. The quiet dawn jumped to faster than light speed, heading back toward human space. Behind them, the Galactic Council continued as it had for thousands of years. Completely unaware that the rules of the galaxy had just changed forever in her quarters. Hyjin made a note in her personal log. First contact successful. Maintain Protocol 7 throughout. Recommend continuing limited reveal strategy. Long-term assessment. The galaxy is not ready to know what humanity is. We'll continue observation and preparation. She closed the log and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, beyond the Council's reach, were human worlds where people lived freely, never hiding what they could do. But here, in the galaxy's center, humanity would remain masked. The sleeping giant would keep sleeping, at least for now. Captain Shinjuan was having a peaceful morning when everything went wrong. His ship, The Morning Calm was a cargo vessel hauling medical supplies and food to a human colony on the Outer Rim. The route passed through neutral space, perfectly legal according to council law. He was drinking coffee and reading reports when the alarms started screaming. Verakan warships, announced engineer Oseo Yoon from her station. 3 of them. They're moving to intercept. Jaewon set down his coffee carefully. He had been briefed on this possibility. 6 months had passed since humanity joined the council, and the Verakans had been testing various species during that time. Now, apparently it was humanity's turn. Battle stations. But remember, Protocol 7. The crew moved quickly to their positions. To any observer, they looked concerned and frightened. In reality, they were calculating. Every human on the ship had been chosen specifically for this mission because they were good at pretending to be afraid. The Verakan ships surrounded the Morning Calm. A message came through. Human vessel. This is Admiral Crexton of the Verakan fleet. Prepare to be boarded for inspection. We're in neutral space. Jaewon replied calmly. You have no legal authority here. We have the authority of strength, Crexton said. You will comply or be destroyed. Jaewon glanced at Seo Yoon. She nodded slightly. The Morning Calm could vaporize all 3 Verakan ships before they even knew they were under attack. The ship's weapons systems were hidden behind panels that looked like ordinary hull plating. The shields could stop anything the Verakans could throw at them. But none of that would be revealed today. Comply under protest, Jaewon said. This will be reported to the council. Report whatever you wish, human. The Verakan boarding party arrived 30 minutes later. There were 20 of them, all heavily armed, all looking for a fight. Their leader was a scarred warrior named Vexstar. He pushed past Jaewon without even acknowledging him. Search the ship, Vexstar ordered his troops. Confiscate anything of value. If they resist, hurt them. Jaewon's crew stood quietly as the Verakans tore through the cargo holds. Medic Bae Kyungmin watched them destroy containers of medicine, wasting supplies that could have saved lives. His jaw was tight, but he said nothing. Seo Yoon watched them rip apart a power relay that looked critical, but was actually decorative. The real power systems were quantum entangled and existed partially in dimensions the Verakans couldn't even detect, let alone damage. One young Verakan soldier pushed a crew member. A woman named Lee Hannah. She stumbled backward, falling against a wall. The soldier laughed. Hannah looked up at him with wide eyes, appearing frightened and hurt. Inside, she was running calculations. The push had been weak, barely any force at all. She could have stood her ground easily, could have pushed back and sent him flying across the room. Instead, she cowered. Please, she said, her voice shaking. We're just carrying medical supplies. The soldier raised his hand as if to strike her. Before he could, Jaewon stepped between them. That's enough. You've searched the ship. You've taken what you wanted. There's no need for violence. Vexstar turned to look at him. Are you giving me orders, human? No, Jaewon said quietly. I'm asking for basic decency. Vexstar studied him for a long moment, then laughed. You humans are weak. Pathetic. I can see why you scored so low in the trials. He turned to his soldiers. Take half their cargo. Leave them the rest. Let them limp home and tell their council how fairly we treated them. The Verakans left, hauling away containers of supplies. As soon as their ships departed, Jaewon called a crew meeting. Everyone gathered in the common room. Status report, he said. Minor damage to non-essential systems, Seo Yoon reported. Everything important is fine. They never even found the real power core. Injuries? Jaewon asked. Kyungmin looked around the room. Hannah has a bruise on her shoulder. 2 others have minor contusions. Nothing that won't heal on its own by tomorrow. Any actual injuries? Jaewon asked. No, Captain. Those are the actual injuries. Just bruises. Jaewon nodded. The crew had taken hits and falls that would have killed most galactic species, but for humans, they were barely worth mentioning. Still, they needed to look worse than they were. Kyungmin treat everyone with bandages and traditional medicine. Make it look serious. Over the next hour, the medic wrapped bandages around perfectly healthy limbs, applied ice packs to bruises that would disappear overnight, and gave out pain medication that nobody actually needed. When he was done, the crew looked like they had barely survived a brutal assault. "Perfect," J1 said. "Now we file the complaint." The report to the Galactic Council was detailed and dramatic. The morning calm had been attacked in neutral space by Vraken forces. The crew had been threatened and assaulted. Valuable medical supplies had been stolen. The ship had suffered damage. J1 included photos of the injured crew members and the destroyed systems. The Council's response came 2 days later. The Vrakans were given a formal warning. Nothing more, no punishment, no compensation, just a note in their file saying they had violated neutral space protocols. "That's it?" asked Hannah, reading the report. "They attack us, hurt us, steal from us, and all they get is a warning." "That's the point," J1 explained. "This was a test. They wanted to see how we would respond to aggression. If we had fought back, it would have given them an excuse to escalate. If we had done nothing, they would have seen us as weak and continued the harassment. But we did exactly the right thing. We followed the rules, documented everything, and made them look like bullies picking on a weaker species." "But we're not weaker," Seo Yoon said quietly. "No, we're not. But they think we are. And that's valuable." What the crew didn't know was that every second of the encounter had been recorded by surveillance systems so advanced they operated in spectrums the Vrakans didn't know existed. The data showed everything: the Vrakan weapon specifications, their armor weaknesses, their tactical protocols, their psychological profiles. Every soldier who had boarded the morning comm had been scanned down to their DNA. The information was already on its way to Earth's intelligence division. They were building a comprehensive database on the Vrakans. Strengths, weaknesses, tactics, psychology, technology. If humanity ever needed to fight them, it would be a very short war. But that was the point of Protocol 7. Don't fight if you don't have to. Learn everything about potential threats while they learn nothing real about you. Stay invisible until the moment you can't, and then be overwhelming. J1 filed his report to Earth Command. It was simple and direct. Vrakan provocation successful. Maintained cover throughout encounter. No capability reveals. Recommend continued passive posture. Full tactical data attached. Response came from Admiral Lee Sora herself. "Well done, Captain. Your performance was perfect. The Vrakans now believe they can intimidate human civilian vessels. This will lead them to underestimate our military ships when they eventually encounter them. Continue Protocol 7. Sora out." 3 weeks later, J1 heard that another human cargo ship had been stopped by Vrakan forces. That crew had also complained to the Council, also received only a warning in response. The Vrakans were establishing a pattern. Believing they had found a species they could push around. What they didn't realize was that every encounter was another chance for humanity to study them. Every Vrakan ship that stopped a human vessel was scanned, analyzed, and cataloged. Every soldier who boarded was added to the database. Every threat was recorded and evaluated. Seo Yoon understood this better than most. She spent hours reviewing the scan data from their encounter. "You know what's interesting?" she said to J1 one evening. "Their ships are actually well designed. For what they know, they're working at very high efficiency." J1 prompted. "But they're using principles we figured out 300 years ago. Their power generation is crude. Their weapons are brute force. Their shields are static. If we wanted to, we could redesign their entire fleet to be 10 times more effective. Should we offer?" J1 asked with a slight smile. Seo Yoon laughed. "And reveal that we're that far ahead? No. Let them keep their advanced technology. Let them think they're impressive." A month after the incident, J1's ship passed through the same area again. This time, they encountered a different species cargo vessel being harassed by Vrakans. The aliens were actually fighting back, firing their weapons at the Vrakan ships. It went poorly for them. The Vrakan warships destroyed the cargo vessel in less than a minute. There were no survivors. J1 watched the debris field drift past his viewport. "Seo Yoon, make a note. The Vrakans are becoming more aggressive. They're testing boundaries. Should we do something?" she asked. We'll report it to the council. We'll express our concern. We'll call for peaceful solutions. He paused. And we'll keep building our database. Because someday, the Vrakans might push too far. And when that day comes, humanity will be ready. The morning calm continued on its route, just another ordinary cargo ship carrying ordinary supplies. The Vrakans had learned that humans could be bullied. They had learned that humans followed rules even when those rules didn't protect them. They had learned that humans were soft, peaceful, and weak. They had learned exactly what humanity wanted them to learn. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was chaos. Representatives from every species were shouting, clicking, humming, and roaring all at once. Admiral Lee Sora stood quietly in the human section, watching and listening. 2 weeks ago, nobody had heard of the Devourers. Now everyone was terrified of them. The Devourers had appeared from beyond the galactic rim with no warning. Their ships were organic, grown rather than built. Their weapons dissolved matter at the molecular level. And they had one clear purpose: consume every living thing in the galaxy. The first battle had been a massacre. The Vrakan fleet, the most powerful military force in known space, had engaged the Devourers with confidence. Supreme Commander Thexriel had led 5,000 warships into combat. Only 300 survived. The Council must mobilize every military asset, Thexriel was saying now. His voice was steady, but Sora could see the fear in his eyes. Every species must contribute their fleets. This is an extinction-level threat. Humanity will send ships, Sora announced. All eyes turned to her. We'll deploy immediately. How many can you send? Asked the Quellan coordinator. 50 vessels, Sora replied. There was disappointment in the chamber. 50 ships seemed insignificant when the Vrakans had just lost thousands. But nobody said anything. Every contribution helped, even small ones. What they didn't know was that Sora's orders from Earth Command were very specific. She carried them in a sealed data chip that she had read exactly once. Authorization Level 3 reveal. Show them 30% capability. No more. Maintain cover as primary objective. Winning is secondary. Teach them we are strong allies, not what we truly are. The human fleet arrived at the battle staging area 3 days later. The other species' fleets were already there, thousands of ships from dozens of races. The human vessels looked small and plain in comparison. No fancy armor plating, no dramatic weapon arrays, just simple gray ships that could have been cargo haulers. Colonel Park Junho commanded the ground forces. His 10,000 troops were loaded into transport ships, ready to deploy to contested worlds. They wore basic armor, carried simple weapons, and looked like any other galactic military unit. None of the other species noticed that human soldiers never seemed to get tired during training exercises, or that their reaction times were impossibly fast, or that they treated carrying equipment that should require 3 people as if it weighed nothing. Specialist Kim Hyman was one of 50 fighter pilots in the human squadron. At 23 years old, she was actually one of the older pilots. Most human fighter pilots started training at 16 and were considered veterans by 20. Her reflexes had been tested at 12 milliseconds, which was slow by human military standards. That made her ideal for this mission. Remember your briefing, her squadron leader told them before launch. Fight at 30% capability. Make it look difficult. Show appropriate stress responses. If you have to choose between maintaining cover and winning decisively, maintain cover. Hyman nodded. She had practiced this. Flying slowly, reacting with realistic delays, missing shots that she could easily make. It was harder than actual combat. The Devourers arrived in force. Their organic ships looked like massive insects, all spikes and curves, pulsing with strange energies. The Council fleet engaged them in a battle that stretched across space. It went badly from the start. The Devourers' weapons cut through shields and armor like they weren't there. Ships exploded by the dozens. The Vrakan commander was calling for retreat. When the human fleet moved forward, Sora watched from her command ship as her vessels entered the battle. Weapons free. Remember, 30% power only. Make every shot count, but miss occasionally. Take hits on your shields, but act like they hurt. The human ships moved through the battlefield with precision that made the other species pilots look clumsy. But it wasn't perfect precision. Sora had ordered them to add random elements, to make mistakes, to look like they were trying very hard. Hyman launched in her fighter. The moment she left the hangar, she wanted to accelerate to full speed, but she held back. She flew at velocities that felt impossibly slow to her, even though she was still faster than any other species fighters. A Devourer ship targeted her. Its weapon fired, and she dodged, but not quickly. She let the energy beam pass close enough that her shields flared. "That was close," she said over the comm, injecting fear into her voice. In reality, she had seen the shot coming 3 seconds before it fired and had calculated exactly how to dodge it while making it look difficult. She targeted a Devourer ship and fired. Her weapon was listed in the specifications as a standard plasma cannon. That was a lie. It was actually a quantum disruptor that could phase through shields and destabilize molecular bonds. But the Devourers didn't know that. Nobody did. She hit the enemy ship, and it began to break apart from the inside. Around her, other human pilots were doing the same thing, fighting hard, but not too hard. Winning, but not too easily. They were pulling impossible maneuvers and then acting surprised that they worked. 1. Vraken pilot watched Hyman's fighter pull a 40-gravity turn that should have killed her instantly. He tried to follow and blacked out from the force. When he woke up, he assumed it must have been some kind of technology that protected her. He didn't realize that she was barely even uncomfortable on the ground. Junho's troops deployed to a world where Devourer forces had already landed. The enemy was overwhelming the local defenders, species who were considered fierce warriors. Junho's orders were clear. Hold the line. Make it look desperate. Use 30% capability only. Soldiers dug in at a defensive position. The Devourers came in waves, thousands of them, biological weapons that moved like nightmares. Junho's troops opened fire. Their weapons looked simple, but hit with devastating accuracy. Every shot that hit destroyed a Devourer completely. Fall back to the second line, Junho ordered after an hour. His troops retreated in perfect order, laying down covering fire. To observers, it looked like a desperate last stand. In reality, they were barely working. Each soldier was calculating how much ammunition to expend to make the fight look real without being wasteful. Private Song Minwoo was stationed at a choke point. Devourers were pouring through, and he was supposed to hold them off. He fired his rifle, dropped 3 enemies, reloaded, fired again. A Devourer got close, and he fought it hand to hand. It was strong, much stronger than any galactic species. It was roughly as strong as a human child. Minwoo made the fight last 30 seconds, grunting and straining as if it was difficult. Then he snapped its neck and immediately slumped against the wall, breathing hard, acting exhausted. Another soldier ran over to check on him. "I'm fine," Minwoo gasped. "It's just so strong." "Good acting," the other soldier whispered. They both knew Minwoo hadn't even been trying. The battle lasted for 3 days. The Council forces were being pushed back on every front. Then slowly, impossibly, the humans began to turn the tide. Not through overwhelming force, but through perfect positioning, precise strikes, and unshakable defense. Every time the Devourers seemed about to break through, human unit was there to stop them. Dr. Han Guan watched the battle data from a safe distance. She had designed many of the weapons the human fleet was using. Well, designed was the wrong word. She had taken weapons that humanity had developed 20 years ago and made them look new. The real cutting-edge weapons, the ones that could crack planets or stop time, those were safely hidden. "They're buying it," she told Sora, over a secure channel. "The other species think we're fighting at full capacity." "Any casualties?" Sora asked. 3 injuries. All minor. One pilot crashed because he was trying to make it look dramatic and overdid it. Broke his arm. He'll be fine by tomorrow. "Tell him to keep the cast on for a month," Sora said. "We need to maintain the illusion." On the 4th day, the Devourers retreated. They had never retreated before. The Council fleet had suffered enormous losses, but they had won. Humanity had lost 0 ships, 0 pilots, 0 soldiers, but Sora made sure to report casualties anyway. Damaged vessels that were actually fine. Wounded soldiers who were perfectly healthy, depleted resources when they had barely used any ammunition. The Galactic Council celebrated humanity as heroes. The weak species that had joined them only 2 years ago had proven themselves in battle. They had fought alongside the Vrakins as equals. They had saved countless lives. Dexerel himself approached Sora after the battle. "You fought well, human. I admit I underestimated your species." "We did what we had to do," Sora replied. "For the Council. For the galaxy." Dexerel nodded, but his eyes were calculating. "Your pilots. They moved strangely, turned in ways that should have killed them." "Advanced training techniques," Sora said smoothly. "We've been developing them for years. Your weapons. They were very effective against the Devourers. Got lucky. Found the right frequency to disrupt their organic ships." Dexerel studied her for a long moment. "I watched your soldiers fight. They acted exhausted, desperate. But none of them died. None of them even seemed truly hurt." Sora met his gaze steadily. "We're good at surviving, Commander." "Humans have always been good at surviving." He walked away, but she could see him thinking. The Vrakins were starting to understand that something didn't add up. The summit was held 6 months after the Devourer War ended. Every species sent their highest representatives to Nexus Prime. The purpose was simple: reorganize the Galactic Council to better face future threats. Humanity's role was expected to be significant. They had proven themselves as warriors and allies. Ambassador Choi Hee-jin walked into the Grand Chamber with her full delegation. General Kwon Tae-young was beside her, wearing his military uniform. Dr. Park Soo-min, who had been with humanity since first contact, was there as scientific advisor. And Admiral Lee Ja-hoon, now promoted to fleet commander, represented Earth's naval forces. The ceremony began with the Quellan, coordinator making a speech about unity and cooperation. Then it was time for the awards. Species after species received recognition for their sacrifice in the war. When it was humanity's turn, the entire chamber stood in respect. "Humanity," announced the coordinator. "You joined our council as a modest species, and you have proven yourselves beyond all expectations. Therefore, we formally elevate your status from mid-tier to high-tier species. You have earned your place among the galaxy's strongest." The chamber erupted in applause. Hyjin walked forward to accept. She stood at the podium, looking out at the hundreds of representatives. Then she did something nobody expected. "Thank you," she said quietly. "But we cannot accept." The applause died. Confused silence filled the chamber. "We cannot accept this honor because it is based on incomplete information. The Council deserves to know the truth about humanity. You deserve to know who you have welcomed into your civilization." Dexerel was standing now. "What do you mean, incomplete information?" Hyjin stepped back, and General Tae-young took her place at the podium. "Since our first contact with the Galactic Council, humanity has been operating under what we call Protocol 7. It's a simple protocol. It's never reveal more than 30% of our true capabilities in any situation. Every test we took, every battle we fought, every demonstration we gave, we were showing you less than a third of what we can actually do." The chamber exploded into noise. Accusations, questions, demands for explanation. This voice cut through it all. "You lied to us? We protected you from knowledge you weren't ready for," Tae-young replied. "Let me show you what I mean." He activated a holographic display. The Quiet Dawn appeared, the ship that had made first contact. It looked exactly as the Council remembered it, a simple, outdated vessel. Then the image changed. Panels slid away to reveal weapon systems that made gasps echo through the chamber. Energy signatures appeared that violated several known laws of physics. The ship's true AI activated, displaying intelligence far beyond what should be possible. "This was our first contact ship," Tae-young said. "We sent one of our oldest, most limited vessels to meet you. We wanted you to see something that wouldn't frighten you. This ship, which you probably thought was barely functional, could have destroyed the entire Vraken fleet that escorted us. It could have done it in approximately 40 seconds. The sectal was gripping the railing in front of him. Impossible, is it? Taeyong asked. He brought up another display. During the trials for council membership, Lieutenant Nam Yoonji fought your champion. She made it look difficult. In reality, she could have ended the fight at any moment. Dr. Yoon Jae-soo lifted your strength test stone with one hand while taking notes. She's a scientist who has never trained as a soldier. An average human soldier could lift 50 of those stones. The displays continued. Data from the Devourer War appeared. Heat signatures, medical scans, weapon outputs, all of it carefully analyzed to show the truth. Humanity had been holding back the entire time. Dr. Suman spoke next. I've studied every species in the Council. You are all remarkable in your own ways. But humanity's evolution took a different path. We come from a world that tried very hard to kill us. We evolved as persistence hunters, chasing prey for days until it died of exhaustion. We developed intelligence to create better weapons. We fought each other in wars that covered our entire planet. We're built for one thing: survival through any means necessary. She brought up biological comparisons. The Vrakins, your strongest warriors, operate at physical levels that humans consider baseline. An average human teenager has faster reflexes, stronger muscles, and better endurance than your enhanced soldiers. Our actual military forces are many times more capable than our civilians, and we have technologies that would seem like magic to most species. Kim Minho, who had been quiet during the trials years ago, finally spoke. We spent 3 years studying you, learning your cultures, your politics, your fears. We held back because we needed to understand if the galaxy could coexist with something like us. Every member of our crew was trained to appear weaker, slower, more limited than they actually were. It was the hardest thing most of them had ever done. Humans aren't built to hold back. Admiral Crexton, who had harassed human cargo ships, stood up. The morning calm. Captain Shin Jae-won's ship. When we boarded them, when we pushed them around, you just accepted it. Captain Jae-won's ship could have vaporized your entire squadron, Ji-hoon replied. Every weapon you saw was decorative. Every system you damaged was fake. The real power core existed in dimensions you can't even detect. His crew was never in any danger. They were actors playing a role. Why? Crexton demanded. Why let us think we were strong? Why let us believe we were superior? Hyjin returned to the podium. Because you needed to believe it. The galaxy has existed for thousands of years with the Vrakins as the apex species. You provided order, security, and stability. If humanity had revealed what we truly are during first contact, what would have happened? Fear, panic, perhaps preemptive war. We didn't want to conquer the galaxy. We wanted to join it. But we needed to do it carefully. Thexra was shaking his head slowly. The Devourer War. You said you fought at 30% capability? That can't be true. I saw your pilots straining, your soldiers exhausted, your ships damaged. All of it was theater, Admiral Sora said, stepping forward. Specialist Kim Hyman pulled 40 gravity turns in her fighter. Those maneuvers should have turned her into paste. She was bored. Private Song Minwoo fought Devourers hand-to-hand and made it look difficult. They were roughly as strong as human children. Our ships took hits and showed damage to systems that don't actually exist. We had 0 real casualties. The 3 injuries we reported, minor bruises that healed in hours. She brought up the real fleet statistics. This is what we actually sent to the war. 50 outdated patrol ships, scheduled for retirement. 10,000 militia soldiers with minimal training. 50 fighter pilots who barely qualified for service. It was the minimum force we could send while still maintaining the pretense of fighting hard. The holographic display shifted again. Now it showed Earth's actual military. Thousands of warships, each one dwarfing anything the Council had ever built. Weapons that manipulated fundamental forces of the universe. Soldiers whose abilities made the Vraken champions look like children. Technology that was centuries beyond what the galaxy considered advanced. This is what we chose not to show you, Taeyong said quietly. This is what we've been hiding. The chamber was absolutely silent. Then a small voice spoke up. It was a representative from one of the weaker species, a peaceful race of traders called the Pelix. If you're so powerful, why didn't you just take over? Why go through all this? Hyjin smiled sadly. Because we learned something important in our own history. Power without restraint leads to tyranny. We could conquer the galaxy, yes. We could force everyone to follow our rules. But that's not the galaxy we want to live in. We want partners, not subjects. We want friends, not slaves. The Devourers were a test, Taeyong continued. Not for humanity, but for the Council. You needed to face a crisis and unite. You needed to discover your own strength. If we had simply crushed the Devourers ourselves, what would that teach you? That you're helpless? That you need humanity to protect you? That's not a healthy relationship, Suman added. We helped you win, but we didn't win it for you. That victory belongs to all of us, together. And now you're stronger for it. Now you know you can face impossible odds and survive. Vixtel had been listening to everything. Finally, he spoke. I feel like a fool. We thought we were the strongest species in the galaxy. We've believed that for 10,000 years. And all along, we were children playing with toys while adults watched. Oh, Jihoon said firmly. You are not children. You are exactly what you've always been. Brave, strong, honorable warriors who have protected the galaxy for millennia. The fact that humanity is more powerful doesn't diminish what you are. It just means the galaxy is more complex than you knew. Why tell us now? Asked the Quellan coordinator. If you kept the secret for 3 years, why reveal it today? Because secrets like this can't last forever, Hyjin replied. You were starting to suspect. Your intelligence services were finding inconsistencies. Eventually, someone would figure it out. We'd rather tell you ourselves, on our terms, than have you discover it in a way that breeds distrust. And Taeyong added, because something else is coming. The holographic display changed one final time. Deep space sensor readings appeared, showing massive energy signatures beyond the galactic rim. Much stronger than the Devourers. Much more dangerous.